Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us here at KAKM for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first, there's a dense smoke advisory out for the upper Koyukuk Valley, including Bettles, Hughes, Caribou Mountain, Gobbler's Knob, and those areas for tonight through noon tomorrow. That's for visibilities to again get reduced down to a mile or less at times in the area here of the upper Koyukuk. Lowest conditions will be overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, then should be improving, and by noontime hopefully the advisory will be lifted. And moving on to satellite imagery, we had a low pressure area off the southeast coast today, the main front having moved inland off to the east there in Canada, so rain changing to showers, but a lot of clouds and showers across the entire southeast coast throughout the day today. As you can see, some moisture out here in the Gulf of Alaska, but also some pretty good clearing taking place over Prince William Sound, south central Alaska. Kodiak Island, mostly sunny, just a few clouds there along the eastern shore, mostly up around Fognak Island, and some good sunshine back here over the southwest interior in Bristol Bay in those areas, and partly sunny conditions here through the upper Tanana Valley, Copper River Basin on up into the Yukon. Then another mass of clouds up there to the northwest, that with a front spreading gusty winds and rain in across the western Arctic coast today, with rain extending down in toward Kivalina. Southwest winds gusting up to 35 miles an hour at Point Lay. Earlier today and this afternoon, even the winds here at Savunga were gusting up to 35 miles an hour as well. A lot of low clouds and fog through the Bering Strait there. High pressure out over the Bering Sea. You can see a lot of clouds across much of the Bering Sea, the lower top clouds here, but some clearing also off the coast there. High pressure northeast winds, kind of an offshore wind flow there, but clouds building this afternoon led to kind of an extensive area of thunderstorms over northeast Bristol Bay, and scattered thunderstorms occurred up along the western Alaska Range and also over the upper Tanana Valley, eastern interior, down into the Wrangell Mountains. And on the chart today, there's those thunderstorms there over the Wrangells. First broke out over the eastern interior, the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Areas of smoke again over the upper Koyukuk Valley areas down to about Tanana. They had visibilities reduced to 2.5 miles earlier today. Then the scattered thunderstorms along the Alaska Range. We had thunderstorm reports from Sparrowvon, King Salmon, and Dillingham. Again, quite a cluster developing here over northeast Bristol Bay this afternoon. Higher pressure off the coast, light wind conditions, low clouds, areas of fog here over the southeastern Bering Sea, and a trough, again, kicking those winds up across St. Lawrence Island, while this front up here to the northwest brought rain, again, from Kivalina northeastward up to about the Barrow area. Amounts in the last 24 hours, not really heavy, just a few hundredths of an inch up in this area, but Barrow did pick up about 1/10 of an inch of rain with that system. And then over the southeast coast, showers today, but rainfall amounts ranged from about 1/4 of an inch at Juneau to over 1.5 inches in the last 24 hours, having fallen at Wrangell. And for tonight, showers continue, mostly cloudy skies, scattered showers along the southeast coast there, but should be fair here over the eastern interior. Some lingering showers, isolated thunderstorms possible over the Talkeetnas up into the Alaska Range, and then down here the showers end over Bristol Bay with becoming mostly clear conditions with that northwest wind breeze, keeping a pretty good VFR here out over Kuskokwim Bay and into Bristol Bay, but then you pick up the clouds again on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula and then back into the VFR there from Chignik over to Kodiak. This front spreads rain eastward to the eastern Arctic coast and kind of extends back to the west-southwest across the Brooks Range area and across the Kobuk Valley out to the northwest coast. So pretty good chance of rain in around Kotzebue, back up to Kivalina and Point Hope in those areas. And then this trough coming over the top of the ridge here over the Bering Sea, That'll spread showers into St. Lawrence Island currently and this evening, and that'll shift more in toward Norton Sound, catching the Nome, Golovin areas later tonight with some showers as far east as the Nulato Hills. But again, just high pressure dominating the Bering Sea out here, so light wind conditions that'll lead to continue the low clouds and areas of fog, probably be back into the fog over the Pribilof Islands this evening into early morning hours tomorrow, and also some clouds and fog possible here for the Alaska Peninsula and all of the Aleutians. There'll be some breaks in the overcast as well, but probably more of a dense fog condition out towards Shemya. And for tomorrow, this trough spreads the showers into the eastern Norton Sound area and then southwest across the Yukon Delta. Most of that action staying north of the Kuskokwim Delta. Should be a repeat of today here, maybe with less thunderstorm activity over Bristol Bay, but mostly sunny to start with temperatures rising into the mid-70s once again. Another sunny, warm day here for south central Alaska. This is Sitna Valley. Temperatures should rise back into the 70s tomorrow, and partly to mostly sunny conditions up over the Tanana Valley. This front weakens as it drops southward, pushing off to the east, still leaving some showers behind here over the eastern Arctic coast and the eastern North Slope areas, and showers along the Brooks Range there where the front's breaking up, and that'll extend back out toward the Kobuk and Noatak Valley areas with just a chance of showers over Kotzebue and Deering, and then some isolated thunderstorms developing again the eastern interior, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, looking at some scattered, isolated, wet thunderstorms, possibly down into the Wrangell Mountains, excuse me, once again. And showers still in the forecast there for the southeast coast. Maybe a few more clearing periods with Kodiak Island, again, sunshine, and the south central Alaska. Kenai Peninsula, mostly sunny. Prince William Sound on Sunday, maybe a few more clouds in there, but still dry conditions for all of the North Gulf Coast. High pressure here over the Gulf of Alaska. And showers are still in the forecast there for the southeast coast, but there'll be more isolated or scattered. The clearing periods should become a little bit more widespread, but not going to lose the showers completely. Still an upper disturbance hanging in this area here. But it should be mostly sunny, maybe a little bit of an increase in the clouds there for Kodiak Island, but not much. Still under the domination of the high pressure here over the Gulf of Alaska. This low down here staying to the south for now, and then high pressure nosing into the southwest interior. That's going to keep that northeast breeze going, keeping the winds blowing offshore there for northern Bristol Bay. So it should be pretty good flying conditions again, and again, sunny skies, highs into the mid-70s. Risk of a few showers over the Nulato Hills, and west winds 15 to 20 miles per hour across St. Lawrence Island, and really not much change in the high pressure out here, just locked in there just west of the Pribilof. So a lot of low clouds and fog, nothing really to mix that out. So periods of fog with IFR for the Pribilofs, possibly down to the eastern Aleutians on the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, and all the Aleutian chain looking pretty IFR for Sunday as well, with scattered showers here again. Eastern interior areas, eastern Alaska range, could be some isolated thunderstorms as well as far south, possibly as the Wrangell Mountains again, and then a trough up here across the North Slope, kind of the remnants of that frontal system, but low pressure there just southeast of Kaktovik. That'll keep a chance of showers in the forecast there for much of the eastern Arctic coast, central Arctic coast areas, and North Slope and along the Brooks Range, but amounts won't be very much at all. Wherever the heaviest amounts will be here over the eastern areas, but those amounts won't be much. And for temperatures this afternoon, mostly in the upper 50s to lower 60s here across the southeast coast. Juneau had 59 degrees, 58 over at Sitka. Klawock had 57. One of the warmer locations occurred at Annette with 61. Warmer yet was Wrangell with 63 degrees. That same temperature also reported from Yakutat. Valdez into the mid-60s today. Closely behind was Cordova. Anchorage was up to 73, but at ob time here, 72 degrees reported at the airport. 66 at Kenai, 59 down at Homer, 10 degrees warmer at Seward, 69 degrees. They were actually about 73 earlier today, and then the wind swung around to the south and cooled them off a few degrees. But very nice 70s here, northern Cook Inlet into the Madanuska Susitna Valley areas with some thunderstorms developing over the Talkeetnas this afternoon. And then lower 70s over the Copper River Basin there at Gulkana. Up in the Tanana Valley, warmest conditions at Tanana is 72, 68 at Fairbanks, and cooler 64 at Bettles with 67 down at Northway with thunderstorms in the area there at 4 p.m. Farther to the north, upper Yukon Valley 66 at Fort Yukon, 63 both at Anatuvik and Arctic Village today, 67 at Bettles. The Arctic coast, not too bad, 49 at Barrow, about the same at Atchison, and 64 over at Point Lay. a little bit more sunshine here, allowing temperatures into the 60s for the eastern Arctic coast, but then the clouds, wind, and rain here holding it down into the 40s in the west. 64 at Buckland, contrast that with 56 at Kotzebue and 50 degrees at Kivalina. 49 at Nome, Golovin had 52. There's 71 this afternoon at McGrath, and 67 at Sparivon, where they had reported a thunderstorm. 72 at Sleepmute, and then about 10 degrees cooler at Bethel with 63 degrees. Mostly in the lower to mid-50s here along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast over to Togiak with 54. 73 both at Dillingham and King Salmon. The Alaska Peninsula shaping up into the upper 50s and lower 60s. Chignik did get up to 64, some sunshine. 65 in Kodiak. 55 at Unalaska, mostly lower to mid-50s over the western and central Aleutians. Looking at the lows for tonight, into the 30s there on the central Arctic coast, almost down to the frost point there at Barrow, but generally in the 40s for the North Slope, 40s through the Brooks Range, and then upper 40s to mid-50s here through much of interior Alaska, mostly in the mid-50s for northeast Bristol Bay, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, upper 40s, mid to upper 40s there, with St. Mary's forecasting a low of about 45, with upper 40s for the Copper River Basin. South central Alaska, most areas staying in the 50s tonight for overnight lows, much like this morning. Some of the North Gulf Coast could drop into the upper 40s, but all of the southeast coast here lower to mid-50s, and not much change out over the Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow back into the 50s here for the Alaska Peninsula areas, or the central Aleutian areas. Alaska Peninsula, look for, again, temperatures on the Pacific side to reach into the mid to upper 60s tomorrow, a 67 forecast for Sand Point. Bristol Bay back into the mid 70s in the forecast for tomorrow there, and 60s here over the interior areas. The valley south of the Alaska Range there will be warmer, mid 70s once again, into the 70s for the Copper River Basin. Cooler up along the Arctic coast, just 38 at Barrow, but the remainder of the coastline should reach into the 40s and 50s over the North Slope. 50s to lower 60s back over the northwest interior, and upper 50s to lower 60s forecast for the Panhandle. And flying weather, look for marginal VFR along and off the coast here from Dixon Entrance and Queen Charlotte's right up to just east of Yakutat, and then another area here over the northern eastern border areas. Should be VFR though for the afternoon through most of the interior areas there, especially down toward Annette and Metlakatla, looking good VFR flying there. All on the North Gulf Coast for tomorrow afternoon, forecasting VFR flying conditions again. Kodiak Island, northeast Bristol Bay, just about all of the Alaska Peninsula here. And then some IFR possible with the areas of fog and low clouds there, ceilings below 1,000 feet, visibilities at times down below 3 miles there for the eastern Arctic coast, but generally marginal VFR for the North Slope and the Brooks Range, with some spotty areas of IFR around Cape Lisburne and Point Hope and possibly Kotzebue. Then a huge area of marginal VFR here over the Bering Sea again, but kind of a ways off the coast, just catching the western Nunivak Island area and the coastal areas of the Yukon Delta. But a lot of IFR forecast here for the western Aleutian, southwest Bering Sea, over to about Adak, and then it drops to the south of Atka. And looking at the passes, Anatuva occasionally marginal tomorrow. And Adigan, probably mostly VFR. Could be some marginal VFR to start with, and then improving to VFR on both entrances. Lake Clark and Merrill, both east and west entrances, and through the pass will be VFR. Same forecast for rainy, good VFR flying conditions for both rainy and windy VFR. Isabel VFR, Mentasta, same forecast, and Tanita, wide open east and west entrances VFR. Portage, a VFR date coming up there tomorrow. Chilkoot and White, look for occasional marginal VFR throughout the entire day. And taking a look at the freezing levels, about 8,000 feet here over the southeast coast, and most of the eastern and southern interior, 10,000 feet up here over the western coastal areas, nosing over to about the Koyukuk Valley. Then notably cooler there behind that front that's breaking up along the Brooks Range tonight and tomorrow to about 6,000 feet for the Arctic coast, and then notably warmer conditions back out over the western and southwest Bering Sea and the western Aleutians, running about 12 to 14,000 feet out in those areas. Icing threats, not a whole lot, really none significant here through much of the interior. Could be some spotty areas here from the Kobuk Valley southwest into the Yukon Delta there, above 10,000 feet of the light to isolated moderate rime varieties there and across Kotzebue Sound. And also here over the southeast coast, could see some rime and mixed icing with the continued shower threats in those areas. That'd be above about 8,000 feet. And with that shower threat is the upper level low that's keeping the showers going in the forecast there both tomorrow and Sunday here for the southeast coast. Kind of extends back, but the trough acts as south of Kodiak Island. So you're in the drier north to northeast wind flow in behind. Huge area of high pressure here out over the Bering Sea, nosing into the southwest interior. And then the northern, from about the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, several disturbances in westerly flow there. One back cutting through with the front tomorrow, and then another one coming through later on Sunday and Monday from the west. But basically looking at high pressure holding for the next several days here over southern Alaska. And the winds aloft at 9,000 feet, westerlies 20 to 25 knots through the central interior, possibly as high as 30 knots there for the eastern Arctic coast, otherwise looking mostly 15 knots. Much lighter, more variable wind pattern here over southern Alaska. West northwest winds around that high pressure area in across the southeast coast, and easterlies 15 up to 30 knots for the central Aleutians. And at 3,000 feet, about the same pattern, 15 to 20 knot winds through the central interior areas, and lighter across the Brooks Range, 20 knots possible on the eastern Arctic coast. Pretty light winds across the Panhandle, southern Alaska, easterlies 15 to 20 to 25 knots out over the Aleutians. And for turbulence, could be some light to isolated moderate chop here from about the Koyukuk Valley eastward across the upper Yukon Valley, mostly along and north of the White Mountains, and then some other areas of light ice or light turbulence here from the Seward Peninsula across St. Lawrence Island, and also out over the western and central Aleutians. That'd be mostly from Adak westward to Chimionat-2. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening. I'm Harry Keeling. On behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to Hangar Flying. Our guest this evening is Joel Hard. Joel is the Alaska Deputy Regional Director for the National Park Service. Joel, welcome to Hangar Flying.
Thank you for having me, Harry.
Joel has been in Alaska since his parents moved to Juneau over 51 years ago. He spent a distinguished career of 32 years with the state troopers, both on the blue side and the brown. He retired as a colonel and head of the then Fish and Wildlife side of the troopers. He went on to manage the Lake Clark operation for the National Park Service for 9 years before assuming his current job, and Joel's been flying since the 90s. Joel, let's start out by talking about Lake Clark National Park. It's obviously a fly-in only park. You can't drive to it. Tell our viewers about some of the park's unique characteristics.
Well, it's one of those beautiful parks, 4 million acres on the other side of the Alaska Range. It was established during the Anilka legislation in 1980, along with most of the other national parks in Alaska, but predominantly it was set aside for spawning habitat for Bristol Bay red salmon, interestingly enough. But it's known for beautiful mountains. The Aleutian and the Alaska Range converge there together and form the Chigmit Mountains, Little Switzerland they call it.
Wow.
And the western flank of the Alaska Range is littered with beautiful glacial mountain lakes and wildlife, brown bear viewing, world-class fishing, you name it. Wonderful place.
I've got a favorite place up there called Kijik that you and I have talked about.
We've shared a few wet lines there.
Let's start with your flying experience at Lake Clark. As I recall, when you were there, you had a very professional team of pilots with a good safety record. What was your formula for success?
Well, you know, I think the park, and I didn't do this, it happened before me, they attracted some local people that had existing experience as aviators, but also local experience. And they brought that skill set with them, and they matured the program accordingly. But a lot of it had to do with their interactions with the Department of Interior's Office of Aviation Services and the training components there, the routine clinics that were held. I mean, one of the annual occurrences at Lake Clark was a float clinic on the lake itself that brought pilots from around the state into that singular place and delivered on that training component. But by and large, the success of that program revolved around 3 or 4 people who had decades of experience in Lake Clark. They knew the country, they knew the geography, they knew the weather, and they knew how the public used those lands, so they knew where to go and when and what conditions brought those people there. So I think that was probably the recipe that was most important.
You know, that'd be a nice luxury to have throughout the state. I think when you look at some of the accidents we have, they involve people who just, quite frankly, aren't very experienced in general and not very experienced in the local area. And you certainly had a great team. When we've talked about this, you say that you need the right tools for the job. What does that mean?
Well, in a place like Lake Clark, for example, you've got people that are using the backcountry, the uplands. You've got people that are using the coast. You have people that are using the lake system. And having the right set of tools, meaning configurations of aircraft, whether they're on floats, whether they're on skis, whether they're on wheels, the pilots associated with those, are they skilled enough to do off-airport landings? Are they skilled enough to do beach landings? Are they skilled enough to get through through the mountains and in the wind and weather conditions that we deal with? So those are the things I'm talking about. You know, judgment and tools of the trade, the aircraft that we use.
So talking about mountains, obviously one of the most distinguishing landmarks in Lake Clark is Lake Clark Pass. Probably flown through that hundreds of times, if not more than that. Talk about some of the techniques you use when you fly through the pass. Radio usage, you know, traffic lookout, weather, those kinds of things.
Well, it's a common pass. It's the lower pass through the Alaska Range to get to southwest Alaska, so it's commonly used. And there's some choke points. So radio usage is absolutely critical. But it's a long pass too. You've got to be cognizant of the weather conditions. You know, talking to the pilots on the other end to understand weather conditions on the other end. All those things are helpful. We worked with the FAA shortly after I got to Lake Clark and configured some existing radio towers for weather observation and webcams. So now you can get online and take a look at what the conditions look like and see the east side of the pass and the west side of the pass, which, you know, I think a lot of folks originally were a little bit, you know, questioned whether or not that was the right move or not. But I think today, nearly a decade later, people are just very, very pleased by that mechanism, by that ability to see weather and understand the flight conditions before they ever start.
Joel, we've run out of time, as I figured we probably would. I'd like to get you on next time. And as we move into August, I want to talk about some considerations, because August has always been a dangerous month. So if you got the time, I'd like to get you back on, and I think people would enjoy hearing from you again.
I'd love to.
Thanks for being on the program tonight.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you appreciate tonight's program, and until next time, fly safe.
Welcome back. Well, this is the state of the sea ice as drawn for this afternoon, still in close to the central and eastern Arctic coast there, which is interesting now that we're sliding into the 1st of August, and then it takes off to the northwest there, and it's slowly forecast to melt in place with no big shifts in any one direction over the next 4 or 5 days. So moving on to the coastal forecast here, northern Lynn Canal, southerly winds tomorrow at about 15 knots, seas up to 4 feet. Otherwise, the central and southern inside waters, Clarence Strait. Stevens Passage looking northwest, 10 to 15 knots. Northwesterlies on the south coast at about 15. Westerlies 10 to 15 up there to the north of seas 4 to 5 feet. And it looks like northwest winds the entire stretch of the coastline here for the Sunday forecast, about 10 knots on the north coast, otherwise 15 knots. Same thing here for the inside waters, mostly northwest winds, 15 knots, except northern Lynn Canal becoming southerly at about 15 knots with seas 3 feet. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, light southwest breezes there at 10. Same thing for Cook Inlet, light southwest winds, as well as the North Gulf Coast, light southwesterlies, all 10 knots or less with seas 2 to 3 feet or less. Westerlies at about 15 here for the Barren Islands, into Kamishak Bay. Westerlies at 15 for Shelikof Strait, and southwest 15 for the east side of Kodiak Island. Then for Sunday, light variable winds here for Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, 10 knots or less with pretty slight seas. Westerly winds 15 knots for Kamishak Bay, otherwise 10 knots all around Kodiak Island. And for Bristol Bay tomorrow, northwest at 10, northerlies at about 15 here for the Alaska Peninsula, more of a northeast direction there on the Pacific side of the peninsula, light variable winds from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and then those stay the same, not much change. Northeasterly winds 20 knots here for the Alaska Peninsula, light northerlies for Bristol Bay. And moving out west to the Aleutians there, for the eastern Aleutians, northeasterlies 15 to 20 knots, seas running about 3 to 6 feet out in that area. For the central Aleutians, easterlies 20 to 25 knots for Adak and Atka, and turning more southeasterly here as you get out toward Chimney and Attu, Kisk Island, and those locations. And for Sunday, northeast winds for Adak and Atka at about 20 knots, and that same wind pattern extends across the Fox Islands as well. Could see some small craft advisories here for the eastern Aleutians on Sunday. Winds 20 to 25 knots, seas running about 4 to 7 feet in that area. And then southeast winds up to 25 knots for the far western marine zone. And then for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwest at 15 to the north, westerlies at 15. Small craft advisories for St. Lawrence Island. Light northerlies for the Pribilof, southwest at about 20 for the northern Bering Sea. And that small craft advisory continues into Sunday as well here for St. Lawrence Island, with those seas up to 8 feet. Otherwise, northwest and northerly winds along the southwest coast on the light side. Just northeast 15 for the Pribilofs. No change here for the northern Bering Sea, holding southwest at about 20. Up along the Arctic coast, we got brisk wind advisories here for westerly winds 25 knots for the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, northwest 15 to 20 knots back to the west from Wales up to Cape Lisburne or Cape Beaufort, west to southwest at about 20 knots. And the outlook for Sunday, winds swing around, actually become pretty light and variable here on the eastern Arctic coast. Easterlies at about 10 for the central coast, up to 25 knots. So small craft advisories here for the western Arctic coast, and from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, southerlies at about 25 knots, southwest 20, Wales to Cape Thompson. And for tonight, again, showers, mostly cloudy skies for the southeast coast there, another trough moving through the area, and some scattered showers possible here. Again, evening thunderstorms, isolated thunderstorms over the Talkeetnas up into the eastern and central Alaska range. This front spreads some rains eastward and southward. Otherwise, it breaks up for tomorrow, just some scattered showers along the Brooks Range and the northern Koyukuk Valley. Showers still in the forecast both Saturday and for Sunday for the Panhandle. Otherwise, mostly sunny here in the west and southwest.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.